because we had some scheduling snafus, we're going to try to do this remotely instead of in person. So we're going to pretend like I'm calling us to order. And when I say approval of prior minutes, I want to make sure everybody knows where that is. So in our D2L or in our virtual resource room, this is under standard 1, under folder 1E1 nursing faculty minutes, and then I do it by, I try to put the agenda in there about a week ahead of time, but then once I take the minutes, I post them into here. So those last months are available there. I'm going to keep moving through this. The first thing we need to discuss, and I'm going to put a discussion board in that D2L course so that we can answer these. So my first question is going to be, is everyone interested in opening the HESI practice tests early? We have been opening them in week 13, and they were due by week 14, but I've had several students ask if we could open them early. So if you would like to vote yes on that, then let's think about a day and maybe say we'll all open them on Saturday or something like that. So I'll put that as our first item in our discussion board. The second one is our curriculum retreat. So we are meeting on Monday the 8th, Tuesday the 9th, and Wednesday the 10th if we need this time. I put it on there. We might not need this last one. So we're meeting from 10 to 3. We'll meet in the nursing skills lab because that's finals week, so there shouldn't be a whole bunch going on. Everybody should be doing having their finals posted, so hopefully this will be a good time for us to be able to do this. And I have an agenda for that. Let me pull that. So I'm going to show you where that agenda is in case you want to pull that. So everybody should have a shared School of Health Science drive. Then under nursing, I always put stuff in here in case I get hit by a car. This is where your information is. Then annual curriculum workshop. And I've eaten apparently 2022 minutes, but I'll go back in and fix that this summer. So for 2023, we do the same thing every year. That's why it's a workshop, so that we're looking at the same type of things every year. So we will actually get into groups and review our mission goals and outcomes in the handbook and see if any changes need to be made to the 23-24 handbook. We'll do the same thing with admission, progression, and retention via the handbook, and if so, make changes for the 23-24 handbook. We'll probably get into 2 groups to do this. One group will be looking at this, another group will be looking at that. We will evaluate if there's any need for any additional academic support via the library, IT, admission, or the Center for Teaching Excellence, and report on that. I will share the NCSBN information from Mountain Measurements, and that really, that's a company that looks at our NCLEX, not only our scores, but specific areas on the NCLEX, and so far we've got the data on, I believe, 12 of, maybe 13, of our ABSN students that graduated last year. That's all the data that's available to us, but we'll go over that, and specifically when we look at that, then when we have it in our minutes, if we notice they did poorly on pharmacology, that means I need to go back and look at what I need to tweak in pharmacology to bolster that. So it's really kind of a reporting mechanism. Here's what we didn't do well, and then here's how we're going to beef it up for the next time. I'll share a little bit of information if there's anything new about IDFPR, but most of that information is found within the Mountain Measurements. Right now we are sitting on 83%. Out of everyone who has tested, 2 individuals have failed the test. Of those 2, one of them passed it the second time. One student has passed or has failed 2 times, and I still have 2 students that are out there that have not taken it yet. They finished in December, and they are taking it out of state, and they just simply haven't taken it yet. I reached out to them just this last week. When we look at program outcomes, we need to look at our new graduate surveys. This is a survey that Deb puts in Nursing 455. I send out the 1-year surveys, and I'll be doing that. Which leads me to the 3-year we don't have, and then I will send out some employer surveys probably they'll be a little slim from right now because I only know where our ABSN students have gone to work, so I'll send those out. And then I will attach all our minutes from our advisory board meetings. Those advisory board meeting, I couldn't think of the word, newsletter will go out today after this recording, so I'll send those out. Then when I mention these things, when I say level objectives, we specifically have to look at, are we meeting the level objectives for these two courses? And here is why. If you take a look at our handbook, and we're looking at our last handbook, not the one that we're going to be in the fall, but this last handbook. When we specifically look at that, we're saying that we meet our level objectives, and we're measuring them in those two specific courses. So let me get to that. So we have in our handbook and in our accreditation narrative that we look at evidence of learner outcomes in these two classes for level 1, and then in 325 and 400 for level 2, and then in 435 and 440 for level 3. So we'll have to pull the data for these. Basically, when we're looking at that, we're looking at, did everybody pass the practice test, which we're telling them they have to before they can sit for the HESI, so that's a good one. Did they complete the focused review? And we're saying, yes, you have to do that before you can take the specialty exam. And then what were our scores on that specialty exam? So we'll look at all 3 levels. For some reason, I need to add that. So we'll look at 300, 345, 325, 400, 435, and 400 on that one. Which leads us to looking at specific HESI specialty reports. So we'll be examining what I just mentioned on that. We wrote in our narrative for our accrediting body that we looked at the specialty HESI report for each of our courses. So I will list all of those out here, and we'll look at what our range or our average was, and we'll compare that with the national average, and we're simply reporting it out. Hopefully, as we use more of Elsevier items, we'll start to see a trend upwards on those numbers to at least meet, if not exceed, the national average on those. So again, I need to spell the rest of our courses out here. Then I think the bulk of our time on day 2 will be spent here in this course-specific information. So what I specifically wanted to do was look at your courses. So I'm gonna use pharmacology right now. So if I'm looking at pharmacology, is there anything I need to do different in pharmacology based on how they did on their HESI, and based on some of that mountain measurement feedback to change that pharmacology course? So making some intelligent decisions when I'm making those changes. And then I also wanted to share, which I'll have available to everybody, the Elsevier course content that we will have starting this next year. It's called Elsevier 360. I've got some research studies that say how useful those are and how they're being used. So I'll share that with you, but I wanted to give an example of pharmacology. So they have these RN guides for each course. So when I'm looking at that, it's telling me this is everything you have in this course that you should be utilizing, and I'm probably underutilizing something. So it tells me all this information. I don't use this at all in my pharmacology course, and that's kind of interesting. I need to learn to do that. Some digital health experiences, and I'll come back to this because I think we get to choose 5 courses to utilize the digital clinical experiences. And then some medication administration drills, which I don't use at all. I don't use the simulation learning system at all. So there's at least 2 things that I need to integrate to my class time that will help students perform better on the HESI and therefore the NCLEX. So I have this for each class that I'll be able to share with us when we're looking at this course-specific information. I'm not wanting to spend this time developing those courses. I'm just wanting us to say, this is what I'm going to work on this summer to make this class better for the student and better for me. I'm going to work on this over the summer for the next 23-24 school year. Then we want to look at lab simulation and how we're best using Destiny in her role, she has, to me, she's catapulted us just in the 3 months she's been here to utilizing that lab much more aggressively than we were. She has some opportunities this summer to go to SLU and see how they use theirs, and I think maybe another location in Peoria, if I'm not mistaken. So how do we want to utilize that lab space in addition to just using it for our lab courses, 300 and 320? Is there a way that we can tease out small groups and have them utilize that lab space within class time? And then she's going to look at the simulation lab learning. Did I say? I don't know if I said that right, but that's another aspect of Evolve that I've never used, and it's in every one of our courses, which means students are paying for them, and I just have failed to use it. So there's, it looks like to me, it's a chart, and it gives you an unfolding scenario based on what's going on with a patient. You don't have to be in front of a simulator. You just have to have that chart there. So maybe we can figure out some key areas we'd like to utilize that. Then we'll look at recruitment and retention rates, and I pull that from when students finish 300 to when they finish the program. So with this first group, we'll only have 2 groups of data to look at for this. We'll have our accelerated students that graduated already, and then our group of our first traditional students that are graduating this year. We'll be able to examine them. So I know they're going to be bad right now. I'm not too worried about it because they started in the middle of COVID, brand new program, but we do want to say this is what we're doing to enhance those rates. We'll look at some of that aggregate faculty data. We need to specifically list things that we're doing and trainings that we're going to that are forming how we're doing better for our program. Specifically the flipped classroom. I need to make sure we're honing in on some of those things. And then we'll kind of wrap up. We might even do this on Wednesday. Maybe we should go to lunch to do the last 3 things here. So what are some research opportunities we want to look at for the next year? And then what are some service opportunities we want to look at? And then what is our plan for onboarding new faculty? Destiny's been working on this a bit for me, and so has Heather. Heather's looking more at onboarding clinical faculty. So how do we want to approach that for the next year? Because we won't hire anybody for the 23-24 year unless they'll be clinical faculty. But this time next year, we will be hiring new people for fall of 24. So if you don't mind, after you have time to look at all of our material here, you see what else I think I'm going to stop this, and this will be part 1 of our faculty meeting, and then I'll pick it back up right here for the rest of our curriculum, or I'm sorry, the rest of our monthly meeting.